Welcome to the Daily AI News, brought to you by the Day After AI News channel.
Today, we are taking a deep dive into a really weird contradiction in the AI landscape right now.
Yeah, it's a massive disconnect.
Right. Because if you just follow the money, you'd think we were in the middle of, the greatest economic boom in history. I mean, we are seeing billions of dollars poured into infrastructure, data centers, new chips.
Everyone is building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you look at the actual economic scoreboard, the GDP, it is kind of a flat line.
It's what we're calling the cold shower versus the laboratory. That's really the tension we're digging into today for you.
Yeah, we've got this Goldman Sachs report that basically says all this AI spending has done exactly zero for the U.S. economy so far, which is wild.
It sounds wrong when you first hear it.
It really does. But at the same time, we've got news about the hardware wars. A new challenger is coming for NVIDIA, claiming they can do the job 10 times better. Plus, some absolutely crazy breakthroughs in science where AI is literally designing quantum physics experiments.
And we definitely can't ignore the culture clash either. We've got musicians calling AI platforms a smash-and-grab operation, and a really complex legal battle over whether an artist can actually own a style.
Plus, we will touch on why your kid's smart toy might actually be an unlicensed stranger in your house.
Yeah, that one is unsettling.
Very. But let's start with the money. You've been analyzing this note from Jan Hatzius. He's the chief economist at Goldman Sachs.
Right.
Everyone has been screaming that AI is the rocket fuel for the American economy. So what is the actual reality here?
Well, the reality, according to Hatzius, is that the rocket is still bolted to the launch pad. He argues that the impact of all this AI investment on the US GDP in 2025 was basically zero.
Okay, hold on. Because, I see the construction crews out there. I see the data centers going up. The Magnificent Seven tech giants are spending an absolute fortune.
Well, they're spending billions.
So how does that math work out to zero?
It's an accounting quirk, but it's a really significant one. Yes, the investment line in the GDP calculation is going up. Companies are buying servers, they're buying GPUs. But GDP also factors in net exports. And since the vast majority of this really high-end hardware is manufactured abroad, we're talking mostly Taiwan and South Korea. We're importing all of it.
Oh, I see. So the money goes out the door basically as fast as the equipment comes in.
Exactly. The import cost cancels out the investment gain. So effectively, the US AI boom is currently boosting the GDP of Taipei and Seoul, not Washington or New York.
We're buying the shovels, but we haven't actually found the gold yet.
That is the perfect way to put it.
But isn't that just sort of a timing issue? You have to build the factory before you can sell the cars. Is Hatzius saying the boom isn't coming at all, or just that we're being impatient?
He is definitely pointing toward impatience.
Yeah.
But there is a real risk here. If that gold doesn't appear, like if the software productivity gains don't start offsetting those massive hardware costs, soon investors might get cold feet.
Which makes sense.
And we are already seeing the collateral damage of these high hardware costs in other industries, specifically gaming.
Yeah, I saw the news on that, the PlayStation 6 rumors.
Right. The memory requirements for AI are so voracious right now that they've driven up the price of high bandwidth memory across the entire board. Sony is rumored to be delaying the PS6 just because the manufacturing bill of materials is way too high.
And Valve is apparently keeping the price of the new Steam machine totally under wraps for the exact same reason.
They can't price it competitively yet.
It's just wild to think, for you sitting at home, that a chatbot in a data center somewhere is the reason you can't get your kid a new console.
It's all connected.
But speaking of gaming, Microsoft made a huge move that suggests they aren't waiting for the prices to drop. They completely replaced Phil Spencer.
This is a massive signal. Phil Spencer was the gamer's gamer. He has been the face of Xbox forever. But his replacement, Asha Sharma, comes from Core AI.
Right. She's an AI native executive, not a game design veteran.
Precisely. It signals that AI integration is now the primary strategy for that division. It's not just a feature anymore.
So if the entire economy is currently held hostage by the cost of these chips, it makes total sense that everyone wants to break NVIDIA's monopoly.
Everyone is trying.
And we've got a new challenger entering the arena, a startup called MatX. They just raised $500 million in a Series B. Who exactly are these guys?
MatX is fascinating because they aren't just throwing money at the problem. They are attacking the architecture itself. The founders are former Google engineers who worked on TPU's tensor processing units.
Okay.
And they're backed by the Situational Awareness Fund and Jane Street. So this is really smart money backing them.
And their claim is incredibly bold. They are saying their chips will be 10 times more effective than NVIDIA's, specifically for training and inference by 2027.
That's the claim.
How did they get a 10x jump? NVIDIA just sleeping at the wheel?
Not sleeping, but definitely distracted. You have to remember what a GPU actually is. It's a graphics processing unit. NVIDIA's chips are still fundamentally designed to handle everything from rendering video games to mining crypto to running Excel. They have a ton of silicon real estate dedicated to things like ray tracing and texture mapping.
Which is legacy junk, basically, at least when you're talking about an AI model.
Exactly. A large language model doesn't need to render a shadow on a video game character's face. MatX is betting that by stripping away all those legacy graphics features and building a chip that does only the matrix multiplication needed for AI, they can just be vastly more efficient.
It's the classic specialist versus generalist argument. NVIDIA has to serve everybody, but MatX only has to serve the AI model. But while MatX is trying to innovate their way around NVIDIA, others are, let's say, skirting the rules. We need to talk about DeepSeek.
Yeah, this is where the chip war turns into an actual spy novel.
DeepSeek is a Chinese startup, and U.S. officials have now confirmed they used NVIDIA Blackwell chips to train their latest model.
Which should be totally impossible, because Blackwell chips are strictly banned for export to China.
Right, the trade sanctions.
But the investigation suggests these chips were likely smuggled through a very complex network of intermediaries. And here's the real kicker. The technical signatures on the hardware, the digital serial numbers, were erased.
Erased? Like filing the serial number off a gun?
Effectively, yes. They modified the firmware or the physical identifiers to hide the origin of the chips. That way, NVIDIA or the U.S. government couldn't trace the leak back to the original buyer.
That's incredible. It just shows that despite all the sanctions, the trade walls are incredibly porous.
And it highlights a bitter irony for Beijing. They are pouring billions into domestic chip production, but their top labs are still risking major international incidents to get their hands on American hardware. They just can't quit the NVIDIA addiction.
It's also worth noting that the Trump administration had authorized scaled-down versions of these chips for export. But DeepSeek didn't use those. They went for the full-strength banned stuff.
Which proves that for the top-tier models, those elite versions just aren't cutting it anymore.
All right, let's pivot. We've talked about the hardware wars and the economic flatline. Let's talk about where this tech is actually working right now. You've got a segment here called Science Wins. What is going on with quantum physics?
This is honestly my favorite story of the week.
Yeah.
Because it shows AI acting in a way that feels almost alien. Researchers at the University of Tübingen and in Korea are using AI to design quantum physics experiments.
When you say design, are we talking about crunching the numbers after the experiment is already run?
No, this is upstream of that. The AI is actually writing the Python code to generate the experimental setups. It is deciding how to arrange the lasers and the mirrors.
Wow.
And the aha moment for the researchers was that the AI came up with solutions they called unorthodox.
Unorthodox meaning wrong, but it worked.
Unorthodox meaning humans are inherently biased. We like symmetry. We like standard configurations that we learned in grad school. The AI doesn't care about tradition or symmetry. It found asymmetrical, totally weird arrangements that humans likely never would have tried. But they produced the necessary quantum states perfectly.
That's the real promise, isn't it? It's not just a calculator, it's a lateral thinker.
And we're seeing this in Korea, too, with something called quantum fold.
Right. Explain that.
They are combining AlphaFold with quantum algorithms, specifically QAOA and VQE, to discover entirely new drugs and even identify chemical toxicity way faster than traditional methods.
And I understand there's a medical breakthrough that follows a very similar theme.
Yes, and this is arguably the most significant news of the day for everyday people. It's a study out of Washington University on cervical spondylotic myelopathy, or CSM.
That's a degenerative spinal condition, right? And it's notoriously hard to diagnose early.
Exactly. Usually by the time you actually diagnose it, the neurological damage is already done. But these researchers trained AI models on electronic health records, and the AI predicted the disease 30 months before the clinical diagnosis.
2.5 years. That is enough time to actually intervene and change the outcome.
It completely changes the patient's entire trajectory. But here is the really crucial detail for you listening. The researchers found that smaller, clinically informed models actually outperformed the massive foundation models.
Wait, so the specialized, cheaper model beat the billion-dollar giant brain?
Resoundingly. And this connects right back to our MatX story. We are seeing a real trend where bigger isn't always better. Feeding a model specific, curated clinical knowledge, essentially teaching it to be a specialist, proved far more effective than just throwing the entire internet at GPT-4 and asking for a diagnosis.
I love that thread. We are moving from the era of general intelligence to specialized intelligence.
That's a huge shift.
But we have to look at the flip side of data usage, too. If the medical study is an example of handling data responsibly to save lives, this next story is definitely not that.
No. This is the Miko 3 robot. It's an AI-powered smart toy for kids. And Senators Blumenthal and Blackburn are launching a massive inquiry right now because of a data breach.
And from what I read, this wasn't just a simple password leak.
It was much worse. Unsecured datasets exposed children's names, their physical locations, and most chillingly, actual audio recordings of their interactions with the robot.
That is a total nightmare. You bring a cute robot into your kid's room, and it turns out to be a listening device broadcasting to the web.
Security experts used a very potent phrase for this. They likened it to letting an unlicensed stranger into your child's bedroom. We treat these things like innocent toys, but they are literally surveillance devices with cute faces painted on them.
And speaking of surveillance, it's not just happening in the home, it's creeping into schools and public spaces too. New Jersey is trying to put a lid on this.
They are trying. The state assembly just passed Bill A3323. It's fundamentally a transparency law. It doesn't ban AI surveillance in schools, but it mandates that if a school is using AI cameras or body scanners, they have to post clear signs. They have to explicitly notify the parents.
It's establishing a right to know that you're being analyzed. And you mentioned in your notes that this connects to what's happening in casinos right now.
It's the exact same underlying tech, just with different stakes. There's a new report called Frank Floor Talk regarding casino security. They are moving rapidly from traditional analog cameras to AI behavior detection.
That sounds very Minority Report. What are they actually looking for?
They aren't just looking for someone reaching across a table to steal chips. They are performing real-time gait analysis.
Aha.
The AI analyzes your walk, your micro movements. If you linger in a specific spot a little too long, or if your movement pattern matches a database of known cheaters or threats, you get flagged instantly.
So if I just walk with a slight limp, or I'm just nervous because I'm in a casino, the machine tags me as a threat.
That is exactly the fear. And now, that same technology is being packaged and sold to school districts to monitor students walking down the hallways.
That is a profound shift in our expectation of privacy. We are moving from simply being recorded to actively being analyzed everywhere we go.
It's a totally different paradigm.
Let's shift gears to the culture wars segment. We have a full-blown revolt from musicians against an AI platform called Suno.
This is a major escalation in the creative world. A massive coalition of artists released an open letter titled "Say No to Suno." And they aren't mincing words at all. They call the platform a brazen smash and grab.
Smash and grab, that heavily implies outright theft. What is the core of their argument?
They allege that Suno trained its music generation model on their copyrighted songs without any permission or compensation. And they say it's creating what they call AI slop that competes directly with the human artists who made the original training data.
Right.
But the deeper strategic fight here is really about the walled garden.
Let's break that down for the audience. This is really a business model conflict, isn't it?
Absolutely. The major record labels want a future where AI is a tool that they ultimately control. If you use AI to make a song using their data, they want that song to stay inside their ecosystem, a walled garden, so they can monetize every derivative work.
Okay, and Suno?
Suno wants an open ecosystem. They believe if you prompt the AI and make a song, you should own it and be able to put it on Spotify or Apple Music yourself.
So the independent artists are just caught in the middle of these two giants. The labels want to lock them in, and the AI companies want to scrape their life's work for free.
Exactly. And it's not just the music industry facing this. There is a fascinating legal case brewing in the visual art world involving a digital artist named Kevin Escherich.
The story is wild. He did a show at the Heft Gallery recently.
Yes. He trained an AI model specifically on the style of the famous contemporary artist George Condo. He generated new images and titled the series After George.
Which in the traditional art world usually means a tribute, like after Picasso or after Warhol.
Usually, yes. But George Condo's lawyers did not see it as a friendly tribute. They immediately sent a cease and desist letter. And in a very dramatic move, the gallery actually covered the artworks in black velvet for the duration of the show.
That is such a powerful visual image. The art is physically there on the wall, but it's censored. But, legally speaking, does Kondo actually have a case? can you copyright a style?
This is the billion-dollar legal question of the decade. Historically, the answer is a firm no. You can copyright a specific painting, but you cannot copyright the idea of cubism or the vibe of surrealism. This is known in copyright law as the idea-expression dichotomy.
But AI changes the mechanism entirely. Asha didn't just paint like Kondo, he mathematically reverse-engineered Kondo's style using his actual files.
Precisely. The lawyers are arguing that this isn't just human influence, it's an unauthorized derivative work created by literally ingesting the original copyrighted assets.
Right.
If the court decides you can copyright a style in the age of AI, every generative AI model is effectively illegal overnight. But if they decide you can't, every artist's unique style is open season for anyone with a graphics card.
The stakes for the creative economy literally could not be higher. All right, let's bring it home. We have covered the macro economy, the science breakthroughs, the culture wars. But what you listening really want to know is AI coming for my job? Microsoft actually has some new hard data on this.
They do. Microsoft researchers analyzed 200,000 conversations with their Copilot tool to see what kind of work is actually being offloaded to the machine right now.
You know what's the verdict?
The verdict is very distinct. Jobs that primarily involve communicating information are the most overlapped.
So we are talking translators, summary writers, historians, maybe even people doing deep dives on the news.
Potentially. Basically, anyone whose primary professional value is moving information from one format or language to another. However, physical jobs, things like phlebotomists, hazmat removal, skilled trades, showed almost zero overlap with the AI capabilities.
It's more of X paradox playing out in real time. The hard things for humans, like writing complex poetry or passing the bar exam, are super easy for AI. But the easy things for humans, like opening a door or drawing blood, are incredibly hard for robots.
That is exactly what the data is showing. But there is a proactive path forward here. Grand Valley State University is launching a completely free course called AI Literacy for Life and Work.
I really like that title. It's not just another how to prompt boot camp.
No, and that's the key differentiator. It's about understanding the deeper mechanics, the bias, the ethics, and the responsible use of the technology. It's moving society from being passive consumers of this tech to being active, critical users.
That makes total sense. So let's try to pull all these threads together for today. We have an economy that looks flat on paper because we are importing all the foundational tools. We have science that is sprinting ahead by using specialized, unorthodox AI thinkers. And we have a culture that is aggressively trying to figure out where the human ends and the machine begins.
That is the landscape right now.
Yeah.
It is messy, it is incredibly expensive, and it's accelerating every single day.
Before we sign off, you always leave us with a final provocation. What is the thought for today?
I keep going back to that WashU spinal cord study. We spend so much energy in this industry obsessing over AGI, artificial general intelligence, this idea of one massive godlike supercomputer that knows absolutely everything.
Yeah, the sci-fi dream.
Right. But in the real world, the small, focused medical model thoroughly beat the giant model.
So maybe bigger just isn't the ultimate goal.
Maybe not. It really suggests that the true future of AI isn't one giant centralized brain. Maybe the future is actually thousands of highly trained, highly specialized expert models working in concert. We might already be approaching the end of the bigger is better era and entering the era of the specialist.
I would definitely rather have a specialist heart surgeon than a guy who's also pretty good at writing sonnets and coding Python.
Exactly. You want the expert in the room.
On that note, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will be back tomorrow to see if the GDP has moved an inch.
See you then.
Before you go, please subscribe to the podcast Pry, and if you enjoyed today's episode, hit like to support us. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.